Since the stay-at-home order has expired, businesses and places of worship in Texas can open up their doors to the public to a certain degree. But just because they are allowed to open their doors doesn't mean they will. Our Ashley Gonzalez has word from the Diocese of Corpus Christi.
Phase 1 of reopening the state has begun. And as of May 1st, some church restrictions have been lifted. And even with some restrictions lifted, the Diocese of Corpus Christi say they're still not ready to open their doors. They've been closed since March 20th. Governor Greg Abbott's executive order allows for in-person church services. However, these checkboxes must be implemented. People who are considered at risk should continue to use online services if possible. And if not, a designated area in the building must be assigned to at-risk attendees only. And finally, keep at least 2 empty seats or 6 feet separation between parties in any row. And at the local level, churches of the Corpus Christi Diocese will open their doors the weekend of May 9th. Bishop Michael Mulvey says guidelines have been prepared for parishes to follow, to come together as a community once again. Mulvey also says in the statement, we must keep in mind that opening the churches for masses and other sacraments does not signal the end of this contagious pandemic. Everyone's vigilance with proper distancing, hygiene, and other measures is necessary whenever we gather. Ashley Gonzalez, 3 News.